Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Monster Hunter Wilds. Today marks a special episode of things you didn't know in this game. We're focused on Title Update 1, the new monsters and some interesting things that are going on around that. A lot of these are our own finds as we've been playing the game, but a few of them come from Reddit and other sources that we'll be referencing along the way. So with that said, let's get started. We're going to start with a fun topic that is Zoh Shia in general, because there's quite a lot of cool details about the monster. And firstly, I want to reference that old detail to do with the waist. If you didn't realize, each and every waist generates a new dagger or knife. Some of them, to be fair, are overlapping, but quite a few of them, especially the new monsters, have completely unique visuals. Take the Artian belt here. This provides you with essentially a little lightsaber instead of a dagger. It's really cool. So if you weren't aware of that, try messing around with some of your waists and find a dagger or knife or whatever it is, a little sword, something that speaks to you that looks cool. There's a lot of extra detail on the waist because of it. But for Title Update 1, of course we have 2 new waists. But what I was surprised by is the fact that it doesn't just affect the knife, but it also affects your little grapple. So the knife of the new Zoh Shia set is this one. This ridiculous, heavenly white glow with a double crossguard. It actually looks incredible. And what's cool about these knives is that you actually pull them out in real gameplay. So while he's sharpening here in the tent, it looks cool and might pop up. But let's say we're actually in a hunt and I'm carving a monster. He'll pull out this same glowing knife and use it to carve, which looks absolutely incredible, and in my opinion is a strong reason to use either version of the Zoh Shia waist, because it's just cool as hell. But I also noticed a different change that I wasn't aware of to my grapple. So as I go pick up an item, you're going to see that I'm going to pull out this Zoh Shia grapple instead. As you can see, it's that glowing white grapple hook like the knife itself. Earlier when I was doing some gathering of some items that have guild points associated with them, special items or whatever, I was underwater and I could really see the glow of that grapple as I was picking everything up. Well worth using the waist for the knife, but also, yeah, it's unique grapple. And I'm not sure if other waists have a unique grapple like that, or maybe so obvious like that. This might be the first one that changes them, but let me know if you've seen any other unique grappling hooks. But there's also an interesting detail to do with the helmets. You can actually see it as I look around with this helmet, that there's this sort of slight blue glow just under the tip of the hood. Now unfortunately it's pretty hard to get a look under there in normal gameplay, even using the photo mode. You see as I zoom in to get a look at it, it just immediately does this fade out, which is so annoying. But you can see what I'm talking about, there's something there. Well, thanks to Cal the Crab on Twitter, he's using some sort of free camera to zoom in and get a look under there for us. And as you can see, it's almost like a pulsating brain, yes, is under that mask. What an incredible detail for them to just completely hide under the hood. Is there any time that your hunter just pulls the hood down and exposes that horror? Or is it just normally completely hidden? Why would they put such a cool detail that we'll probably never see if so? So thank you to Cal the Crab again for showing us that with a free camera. I wouldn't have seen that myself. If we take a look at the masculine version of the helmet, we know we have the brain hidden underneath the hood, right? But this is kind of the exposed hood with a skull. But if we turn this around and look at the back, you can see that there is in fact a pulsating purple and black brain there that's exposed underneath the cracked part of the skull. Absolutely insane. So for this next one, I'm holding a hunting horn, and not just any hunting horn, but of course Zoh Shia's. That is because it's a guitar looking unique hunting horn. And with that, it has unique sound effects I want you to hear. So let's do some melodies and have a listen. Yes, this very cool hunting horn is indeed an electric guitar, and that plays out for your melodies. Obviously different hunting horns have different sound effects, but this is really cool. And it's my understanding that the Fatalis hunting horns were also electric guitars, and obviously with what we know about Zoh Shia being so involved and inspired and even, pieced together by bits of Fatalis, it's just a really cool little detail. Not to mention, it looks fantastic as well. Speaking of interesting details between Zoh Shia and Fatalis, of course, have you noticed how Zoh Shia sits as you open the fight? As I've been practicing openers and doing a few runs, I've just been seeing how it sat there with the tail wrapped around itself, and it feels very familiar. And I saw a reference to it on Reddit that it's sitting like Fatalis. And so here's how Fatalis sits, here's how Zoh Shia sits, and yeah, it's pretty one for one. Obviously they don't look exactly the same, but it's basically the same behavior like we see throughout the fight, all those different kinds of Fatalis attacks. So it's just all those little details. Next, just some cool details to do with the crystals, the fulgurite that you're dealing with in the Zoh Shia fight. Obviously, Guardians generate this fulgurite crystal, and if any element hits it, that causes it to explode, including the monster's own element, so it won't take damage from that, but it'll deal damage to you. We see that in many cases with Zoh Shia's massive crystals. However, we can break them with damage or our own element and cause that to blow up in that element and our damage, which is a great thing to be doing against Zoh Shia when you're fighting them, as we've talked about plenty of times before. But something that's coming up a little bit that's interesting to think about is the fact that there are two thunder slinger pod types that you can get in the arena, and then two dragon. And if you pick up those dragon and blow up a crystal and let yourself be hit by it, well, then you'll have the dragon blight debuff, which suppresses element. So something that's kind of interesting that's happening is that because you've accidentally given yourself dragon blight, you can no longer fire pods at these crystals and cause them to blow up in an element. Because you're blighted, you can't trigger element. And this also means that the element from your slinger ammo won't work either. You need to use a nullberry before you can use further element slinger ammo properly, correctly, even functionally. So hopefully if that's been catching you out, you now realize. Next, let's talk about Mizutsune, the other monster that's been introduced with Title Update 1, and there's quite a lot of cool stuff here. The first thing I want to highlight is something that was brought up actually throughout social media. It's that awesome giant bubble that Mizu's starting to generate in the Title Update 1 trailer. And people were asking like, why have I never seen that attack? Is it a super rare super move or something? Turns out it's just more of a passive ecology thing, where it's just a really cool animation that Mizutsune will do when they're not in a fight, which is kind of disappointing because the bubble looks awesome, but it's still a really cool animation where it's just kind of blowing this massive bubble. It's just a bit of fun. How big can it blow a bubble? Maybe it's just trying and it ultimately blows up in its face. I've seen some funny art on Twitter actually where it flies off like a hot air balloon using this bubble. But there's all kinds of stuff that you'll see if you just sit and watch Mizu. For example, just like Duna, Mizu can swim straight up the massive waterfalls in the Scarlet Forest, which is cool, and you can actually catch it hunting fish. There's a couple areas where it can go out of bounds on the Scarlet Forest, like say up in the high area of Area 17. It can leave the area and do some fishing for a bit, essentially generating its own little traps to slow down and help catch the fish. At the final moment, I think it's 3 fish that go straight up into the air, and Mizu leaps up and just snaps them. If you leave it alone long enough, it will actually just lay down and sit. And a cute detail here is its forelegs overlap each other, kind of reminding me how cats sometimes sit when they're chilling, like the paws one over the other. In terms of battles that we can spot with Mizutsune though, there's a couple. For example, did you know that Mizutsune can spawn on the map with other Mizutsune, and they can and will fight? So there's quite a bubbly display here, a lot of sliding around, lots of bubbles popping, and yeah, it turns out Mizutsune actually beats Mizutsune. I never would have thought that. I would have thought it'd be the other way around. But there's a legit actual turf war that's now introduced that is fantastic with the apex predator of this region, Mizutsune versus Duna. And it honestly looks like it's going to go better for Mizutsune at the start. Duna starts a big slam and it doesn't exactly go to plan. Mizutsune gets around Duna only to be essentially grabbed and choke slammed out of whatever the hell it was trying to do. Duna too big, too strong to care about Mizu's tricks. A couple other interesting details would be the fact that Mizutsune in its tempered form can show up in wyvria, and my first hunt of it in that different locale was against a super tiny miniature crown here. Look how small it is. It's like a big snake or something. Right, next up, let's move on to a couple different topics, and we're going to move towards the hub for one in a second. But as you can see, I don't know if you guys can tell, but maximum might is actually active right now. There's a really subtle, hard to spot effect on my character that loads of people love and aren't super irritated by. There's actually a super popular mod right now that removes this irritating glow from your character. I do think it looks cool, but it's definitely too often and too much as a visual for a lot of people. So fair enough, right? We thought in Title Update 1 we get some sort of quality of life. Since that mod's so popular, maybe they'd give us a way to turn it off intentionally. Well, doesn't seem like that's happened yet. And as you can see, even in the base camp of the Windward Plains, it's still active. Now we're over at the Grand Hub. Something interesting is happening. There's no weird pulsating red glow while I'm standing here out of combat. What a concept. Mind-blowing like that. God, have you noticed how bright that is when it activates? So yes, the technology does incredibly exist. There is no maximum might glow occurring on me while I'm in the Grand Hub. It seems like visual effects like this buff and others aren't active in the hub, yet for some reason they remain a thing in the base camps. So the technology is there. Maybe in Title Update 1 or some sort of update, they will extend that to the other base camps. Or maybe they'll give us a setting where we can turn it off. And I'm sure that'll make a lot of people happy. But the other thing that I want to talk about while we're here in the hub is these giant bones that are shaped like the ribs of a huge monster. And the question is, why are these all over Suja? Because it's not just here in the Grand Hub, it's also around Suja as you're entering the area. There's tons of these giant bones. But in the Grand Hub, we can get up nice and close and personal with them and even climb on top of them. So whose bones are these? Where the hell have they come from? And obviously the people that live here, the Wyverians, the people that live in Suja, they've basically made a home out of them. Well, it's probably the case that these same massive bones come from the same creature. I'm not sure whether we could account this to many creatures or multiple creatures, but it seems likely you could account this to a singular creature in my opinion, and we probably know where this is going. In the Wounded Hollow arena, there is a huge, absolutely colossal skull, a jaw, just a jaw there, that's sticking out the side of the wall. Or as you run down the length here, it's kind of like the rib cage above, same thing in the Grand Hub as we come down this way. We think this is the Dalamadur skeleton, the body of it, or something similar. We think back to, say, the Veil back in World, and that entire locale basically being spines and bodies and bits of Dalamadur. So they've done themes with this before, this massive ancient beast. And I like the idea that that skull being in the arena and all the bones, it's just one singular monster that's dead, and they've made that much use of all the massive different bones and body parts. After all, it's the kind of monster that would live really high up in the mountaintops, and that's essentially what Suja, the hub, and the arena, they all are. So god, it'd be cool if we could see one of those in Wilds. But speaking of other monster behavior, things have changed in Title Update 1 for one monster in particular, Gore Magala, who no longer just habitats the cliffs and then maybe goes to the arena, but also now shows up, as it states, in Wyvria, which I've now seen in game. This is quite interesting because the frenzied monsters, you could only find them in the Iceshard cliffs because that's where Gore is and that's where he's spreading his frenzy from. So with Gore now being allowed in Wyvria, that should mean that the creatures, the monsters there, could be vulnerable to the frenzy. But the question is, can a guardian become frenzied? And I think to arkveld and how he's kind of quote unquote built diff and is immune to the frenzy. So maybe it's that guardians in general just are immune to the frenzy. So I guess they could go either ways with this, like whether in Title Update 2 we get a mini story update where you've got frenzied guardians as a new mechanic or feature, or they actually do something like we hope they would, where they have frenzied monsters fighting guardians and causing all kinds of ruckus that way. And with Gore showing up in Wyvria now, that could be something that's possible. I don't know, I just think Gore and the frenzy is so cool. I like that they addressed it and did something in the high rank. But then you got the guardians that are kind of underused in endgame, and then the frenzied monsters, which are so weak they're a joke. They deserve more story. I want to see them do something with it. And so with Gore showing up in Wyvria, that's my copium. Right, for the last general things I want to talk about, I want to give you a little tip to do with the provision stockpiles, the traders, the merchants. They have a new feature in Title Update 1 that I didn't actually start making use of until today because I just didn't realize. They've put in a new feature, transfer items. It allows you to quick access your item pouch. And yes, if you press the left stick in on a controller, that means I can access my item loadouts. So I can quickly just restock, replenish, and get back out there. This is opposed to going over to my tent, which in different base camps can be a bit out of the way. Then going through this animation, sitting down, going to the item pouch, then using the loadout, then getting out all those menus, then exiting the tent. It's significantly less inputs to just go over to the trader, the merchant, and use that system instead, as a little quality of life tip that you might not have been aware of. Another new feature that's in the game now is of course the canteen, which allows you to target specific feasts and get the amazing attack, defense, and element resistance buff that it provides on top of the specific food skills. In particular, the Azus meal is super good because it comes with the carver meal skill, which allows you to RNG maybe get an extra carve or many extra carves when you're farming something. Now there are specific meal vouchers like the Azus meal voucher here, or there's a pick a meal voucher, allowing you to kind of use that on any of them rather than needing specific ones. So it'd be a really nice idea to be able to farm those out since it's such a potent thing. So one of them that's going to be a great option would be the arena quests, one in particular, the challenge quest with the Shagama here. If you didn't realize, you can take a look at what the rewards actually are before you do the hunt. And so we can see that we might get things like Eastern Honey, Steel Melding tickets, or pick a meal vouchers, giving you a secure and reliable way to target farm those vouchers. Alternatively, you can also do the new barrel bowling minigame. It's not a guaranteed reward for that, but sometimes you will get a pick a meal voucher from that. You can also use the supply ship that sometimes offers meal vouchers. And if you request misc items in particular, you can also be offered up to 10 barrel bowling vouchers per time it's offered. That'll amount to 500 guild points total. Another great option. But there you have it, our newest things episode focused on Title Update 1. If you guys have anything you'd like to add to the topics today, or maybe make a suggestion, we might just come back and talk more things for a Title Update 1 if there's enough. But until then, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.